Hello, my name is Scott, and I'm a racist.
One day, when the glory comes, it will be ours. It will be ours. Oh, one day.
Good afternoon, and welcome to the Scott Stedman podcast. It is August 4th, um, and from listening to the intro of the podcast, you're probably like, what's going on? What am I going to talk about today? Well, it's pretty simple. I'm going to talk about racism and how I am a racist. Um, and I want to talk a little bit about that. Now, most people, when they see me, they would probably not think that. I'm a counselor. I'm a minister. Um, I have friends who are black. I have friends who are Indian. I have friends from different, different cultures and different colors. And yet here I am broadcasting to the whole world that I'm a racist. It it all kind of, don't know when it started, but one thing that made me start thinking about this is when I was in college. I was taking a class called Race and Ethnicity in America, and I remember talking to the professor, who was Professor Piles, wonderful guy. Enjoyed having class with him, even though I was not a sociology major. It was part of my liberal arts credit, and I took the class. And anytime when there was a class that he was teaching, I was all on board. But one of the interesting things about that he said is he ended up pulling up this chart. It was like a picture. And he went and said down what each and every one of these things were. And they were all these like racial slurs towards whites, blacks, Asians, Jews, even people of religion, Muslims, Christians, a lot of different things. I remember we went through and he would read them off. And it was very interesting because he's reading it, and some of us in the class are kind of getting uncomfortable, especially when here he is saying, okay, everyone, what's the N word? And it's like, black people. And like, it was very uncomfortable, but it was very interesting because at the end of that, he basically made the statement that each and every one of you in this classroom is racist. And there are some objection. People are like, oh, I'm not racist. I'm not racist. And he says, you may be a good person. You may, have friends of different ethnicities, but everybody is racist, because there will be a moment and there will be a time where your political views, your how you see the world, how things are happening in the world, that you're going to take aside and you are going to be racist. And he kind of made the example like, sure, you might be walking down the street in the middle of the night. And for most people, if you're a young white woman, you'd be walking down the street. And if there was a white guy who was walking on the same side of the road walking towards you, you would just keep walking by. And you probably wouldn't feel any hesitation or any tightness in your body or any tension. If you're walking and there is somebody who is black walking towards you, and it's late at night, most people will start to feel some tension. And he kind of said, that's because, there's a part of you or whatever, if it's the way you were raised or what you see on TV or how the media portrays certain things, that you're going to start to have these, feelings, and it's going to be based on race. And it made me really think. It made me really think about that, because I could tell you times. I can tell you even back when I was younger, just really, having a lot of friends who were black. I remember I had a buddy. His name was Tony, and Tony was white. and he lived on the outskirts of the city where I lived in. Like, it was considered our city, but it was on that Talmadge Akron border, and and it usually was about a lot of low income housing there. And I remember going there, and that was where like pretty much everybody at my school who was African American was in that lived there. And I remember talking to, building up relationships with Luther and Quentin. And I can even remember Quentin would always come over to Tony's house and we would play Mortal Kombat on the Sega Genesis. And Quentin would always destroy me every time. I was a Nintendo guy, so I didn't really understand the whole 3-button thing. I didn't really get it. I was used to shoulder buttons, and everything else. And then, you know, in high school, I ended up working at a Kentucky Fried Chicken in Akron, and had a lot of coworkers who were black, and I got along with them, and we would laugh, and we'd have a good time, and you know, customers would come in who were black, and I would always, you know, treat them with respect and everything else. So from like junior high, I would say, even younger before that, from junior high through high school, I would pretty much say that I'm not a racist. I'm, you know, the non-racist white person you'll ever meet. And then I went to college. Now, I went to a Christian college. Met a lot of great people. Had a lot of guys who lived on my floor. And I can remember there was one guy on my floor who was staying with my RA, and he was black. And, you know, we got along really well. And, you know, in our floor, we'd always like to pull pranks on each other. And I was one of those guys, and you probably know somebody like this who likes to mess around with people and likes to pull pranks and likes to joke around. But then when people joke around with him or her, you know, they get really mad and get really angry about it. And you're just like, dude, it's just a joke. You joke with me all the time. How come I can't joke with you without you getting mad? Maybe you guys know someone like that. That was me. Not afraid to. I'm sorry, I have to admit that, but that was me. So I would always mess around with this guy, and you know, we'd have a good time. And I remember one time, I had my room open. I was walking down. I was talking to some guys. Well, during that time, my RA's roommate ended up coming in and sneaking into my room, and ended up taking my had like a little like CD a CD book full of my video games and stuff. And me and him were both big gamers, so you know, we like similar stuff. Well, he went and took it and put it in his room. Well, then I go into my room. I'm about to play a game and realize that my book of games is gone. So I'm like freaking out and whatnot. And I'm talking with people, and someone said, "Oh yeah, the RA's roommate took it." And I'm like, "Oh, okay." So I knocked on the door and I go, "Hey, dude, you have my games?" He goes, "Yeah, I did, and I threw them out the window." And I go, "What?" He's like, "Yeah, man, I threw them out the window." And I was getting upset. I'm like, "Dude, let me in." He's like, "No, I'm not gonna let you." I'm like, I'm pounding on his door. I'm so angry. Like, I even went to another guy across the hall. I went and I kind of looked out his window, and I didn't see the CDs on the ground. And then I kind of looked over by his window, and there they were, like hanging off the ledge. Like, he had them like sitting right there on the ledge. So I'm knocking on doors, like, "Dude, this is not funny. Give me my games right now." It's like, "Dude, you like to take my stuff and think it's all funny. How come I take your stuff? You don't think it's funny now, huh?" And I was getting so angry. I was getting so upset, and basically my anger blinded me that I ended up saying, I said, you either give me my stuff now, or I'm going to call the police, you stupid. And out of my mouth flies the N-word. And I remember I said that, and there's guys in the hallway who kind of were shocked that I said it. And I remember like just being so angry. I remember going into my room, shut the door, and I ended up bawling. I started crying, and I wasn't crying because I was afraid that my video games are going to get thrown out the window or anything out like that. I was crying because I just couldn't believe that I verbally said a racial slur to somebody. And it really hurt me. And I'm sure it probably hurt him too. And I remember I'm sitting there in my room, I'm bawling, and then there's a knock at my door, and I'm thinking, oh, great, it's either my RA came back or it's the RD or something happened. And I open up the door, and no one was there, but on the ground was my CDs. So I went and grabbed them, put them back in my room, shut my door, and then afterwards I went out and went to my RA's roommate and basically apologized to him and said, I am so sorry that I called you that. And, he said, dude, he said, it's all cool, I understand, but at the same time, don't be messing with people's stuff. I know you think it's funny to like hide something and put it in the room or take it, and then later on you show it, which is good. You're not very malicious about it, but still, it's not very funny. And I think then that moment, I kind of became more mature in a way, and everything else. And then especially, I don't think I've ever use that word again because I've just felt so bad about it. And the reason why I'm saying all this, and the reason why this is all coming up now in this kind of confessional podcast, is that recently I did the last podcast I did, I talk about Ferguson, Baltimore, and Charleston, and talked about that, and a lot of it had to do with white on black crime, had to do with people in authority and the African American community, and a lot of it had to do with race. And even now, like, I keep hearing these things about how there's a ban of the Confederate flag because it's racist. There's riots in the street because a police officer, even though he has a body cam on, did not act very well and is causing a outcry in the African American community in Cincinnati. And it's very interesting because it seems like every time there is some situation that has to do with crime, whether it's white on black, white on Mexican, Mexican on black, Asian on black, like whatever, anytime when there's conflict of some type between two different races or two different groups, we always find something to blame, whether it's better gun control, whether it's banning a flag, because the thing is, it's easier to point the finger and point the problem at guns, at knives, at flags, at the poor, at social economical things. But the real issue is race. The real issue is race, and it's a lot harder to confront everyone saying, hey, America, even though we had the Emancipation Proclamation, even though we had the Civil Rights Movement, we are still a racist country. We are still racist. And it doesn't matter if you're black and you're racist, if you're white and you're racist, if you're Christian and you're racist, if you're Muslim, if you're racist, if you're gay and you're racist, doesn't really matter. The fact of the matter is that we are all racist. And once we admit it, and once we're able to move forward with that and really say and stop pointing our fingers and saying, well, we need to ban this, or we need to have stricter control on this, or we need to do this, or we need to do that, the fact of the matter is that it doesn't matter if we ban something, because even if we ban the Confederate flag, racism's still going to be prevalent. It doesn't matter if we have stronger gun controls. People are still going to be racist, and if someone does not like someone because of the color of their skin, they're going to find different ways, whether it's a chainsaw, whether it's a nail gun, whether it's a balloon filled with gasoline, like whether it's someone's fist. Like, really, you putting stricter controls on guns not going to solve the problem of racism in America. Really, the only way we're going to solve the problem of racism in America is we have to, A, confront our own personal racism that we have against certain groups or certain people. B, we need to try to raise our children, or if we are an educator and we are educating a bunch of other people who are underneath us, we need to educate them about race relations and not to be prejudiced. It really has to start, because the thing is the media wants, and I think it's kind of weird, and I don't like to bash the media too much, because really a lot of the reason why the media has these stories or they do these things is because we give it to them. When we act immature, when we act out, when we do something dumb or something that's newsworthy, it's going to hit the news, and once that news is there, then, people can kind of spin that what other way. News reporters will get the facts, and then you have blog columnists, you have your friends on Facebook who are going to look at the story and throw their 2 cents into the opinion pool, and really, it's like a big game of telephone where next thing you know, everything runs wild, everything just runs rampant. The fact of the matter is, if we want to change our country, if we want to make sure that, I don't even want to say our country, if you want to change the world, okay, it has to start with you. It has to start with you, and you have to make the choice and make the movement and stand up. If you're with your friends and someone starts telling a racist or a prejudiced joke or even a sexist joke, stand up and say, hey, that's not funny. You need to stand up and be the example to say, hey, I'm not going to tolerate jokes, or I'm not going to tolerate discussion where we're putting down different people because of whatever reasons, things that they don't have control over, like the color of their skin. We need to be the example. We need to stand up, and we need to do something about it. And seriously, I don't want to see people posting things on Facebook, because then they're saying something like, we should ban the flag. We should. And it's actually interesting about the whole Confederate flag, and I'm just going to segue over here and talk about this a little bit. It's very interesting, because me moving in the North, me living in the Midwest, anytime when I would see a Confederate flag flying in the Midwest, my initial thought is, that's about that person's racist, because I can remember in high school some of the guys who would have their big trucks and had their Confederate flags waving from their trucks. They would always drop the N-bomb every time. And I thought that was kind of very racist and inappropriate. Now that I live down here in the South, in Virginia, people start having a conversation about it, and it's very interesting because for them, that flag did not symbolize racism. It symbolized the South and Southern pride. Now, I know some people who are probably going to think, well, part of the whole thing about the South was about having slaves and racism, and yeah, I get all that. But the thing is after the Civil War, after all of this stuff that had happened, I think for some people, they have seen the flag, they've seen the flag in a way go through a change. It no longer represented the South as the Civil War, as of racism, but it represented a heritage. It represented a pride. It represented, it represented a group of people who, represents hospitality. It represents sweet tea. It represents, for some people, it represents soul food, which I know that sounds very weird, but for some people, when they see a Confederate flag outside a restaurant, they think this is going to be some good Southern cooking. So it's interesting how something that meant something bad from one person's point of view means something good in another point of view. Um, Now, does that make it right or wrong? Should we ban the Confederate flag? I don't know. All I know is that even if we did ban this Confederate flag, it's still not going to eliminate racism. So again, like I've said before, if we want to change the way, how we deal with race in the world, in our country, even in our communities, it has to start with us, and we have to stand up and be the example to say, I'm not going to tolerate racist jokes. I'm not going to tolerate certain things. If I'm walking down the street and I'm being friendly with all the white people, I might as well. I'm going to go be friendly with the black person walking down the street too. Say, hey, how are you doing? Great. It's nice to meet you. What's your name? Great. I'm not. We have to really get rid of and basically put our own individual prejudice in check. We need to confront them, and we need to basically learn from them and grow from them so that it doesn't become a wall or blinders on our eyes when we have to deal with other people who are different from us. All right, well, I'm off my soapbox now. Hopefully you enjoyed this podcast. Again, if this was your first time listening to me, thank you. I enjoyed you listening to me. If you've been a long-time listener, thank you again. I appreciate you listening, and I appreciate the support. Until next time, I hope you guys are doing well, and I will have a podcast coming out soon. All right. Hope you have a great day. I'll talk to you later. Bye.